question after the other. That is very important. You see that now I see that the seeker is ready to listen. That is very important. And the seeker has the right intention. So, what happens, we are taught by the great masters never talk about your state as a teacher, but refer the teachings of the great masters. Never ever say that, this is me and that is what is me. Having said that, we should also understand that Eastern wisdom explains what is. It does not explain what should be. What is? So, what is the problem? Then, what is the problem? It is what it is, then only we speak about it. What is? We always bring our mind to one thing. What is? What is? That is the absolute truth. So, what is that absolute truth? It is not affected by the time and the space. When it is not affected by the time space, it is not an object of the mind. When it is not an object of the mind, then my mind should be empty to realize this. As long as there is an object, huh? As long there is an object in the mind, there will definitely be time in the space, shape in the name, and the form. Huh? You see? And it will be constantly changing. So, hence, this mind must be empty. But now, when the mind is not empty, it takes the shape of an object. And then that mind says it is me and mine. So we say, well, when the body is me and mine, why not Shiva is me and mine? We are replacing, we are filtering out. We are asking the mind, come on, when you claim that this is me and mine, this object, then that object is also me and mine. Then third object is also me and mine. Then fourth object is also me and mine. So that is why I explained you every day in the morning before, after you wake up, and before you sleep, just ask the mind. That is also you. That is also, so what is that? Any object in the mind, time in the space which the mind claims me and mine is known as mithya. That appears true, but it is not true. So, what will happen one day? What will happen one day to the mind? Oh, what appears true is not true. The mind will separate itself from all the objects. So, that is a tool, it is a device to be used to make the mind subtle, to make the mind pure, to make the mind lose its attachment, its identification with lot of things. That is what the mithya is. Truth, what is? Mithya, what appears true but not true. And the untruth is non existence. That happens in the dream. Now we should also understand the mithya, and mithya is basically an invention of the mind, imagination of the mind. What is imagination of the mind? The mind imagines past, present, and the future. Mind imagines past, present, and the future. I'm dealing with, and then we will come back to the same thing. Mind imagines past, present, and the future. Clear? Time is one. So, what blocks the realization? It is the blockage of the past. And that blockage of the past is delusion. And the delusion makes me doer and the enjoyer. A very quite interesting principle, but I said, let me take up. The future blockage is also there. What is that future blockage? That I will listen to you and I will awaken myself. There are two things in time: future, or I will listen to you, then I will do something. This is also blocking the to know what it is. And what about the present? In the present, there are many blockages in the present. While listening, I may be attached to something. I may be putting a wrong logic. I may be, third one, you can say that I'm not able to grasp and understand what is being heard. And the fourth one, now there are people who says science is everything, prove me where is the real self. Or other people follow the cult dogma, believe no, I belong to Jesus, I belong to Krishna, tell me something, Krishna is everything, but I don't know anything. So these are the blockages which prevents me to realize, to enter into that state. Now going deeper, today let us talk about the application, and then we will go back, we will merge these two sessions into one. False home to real home understanding. And today we will use the previous uh, topics and merge with the application. So now we have understood the past blockages, the present blockages, and the future blockages. So we are 100% clear that the home of the physical body is the physical home. Home of the mind is calmness, is peace. And the home of motor organs or sense organs is sense organ is simply perception. Eyes are looking at you, simple perception. Let me see the thing as it is. So I'm moving to the truth. But because the mind, the body, the motor organs, and the intellect are attached, so we have to do some practices to bring the kind of detachment. So, whether it is Shiva, Krishna, Jesus, or any other object, we should be using until this detachment and the delusion breaks up and it slowly moves the mind to a state of purity. So, home of the mind is calmness, natural state of the mind. I have talked a lot about it. There is always a natural state of the mind In its natural state, the mind is empty, and the mind lives in the pursuit of knowledge. And the home of intellect is wisdom. Home of intellect is wisdom. So, having understood the conflict and the blockages the mind creates in knowing the real self as what is, not what should be. The science always talks of what should be. It starts with what is and then say, go to the lab, experiment, prove it, apply it. And so that is the approach of the science. So here our master says we have to always be aware. There are two types of, you can say, belief or faith. One, mind believes in the intellect, only my intellect. Whatever I think is right, we do not doubt what we reason. We do not doubt what we reason. That is what happens. Then what happens? We do not change. I have a belief in my logic. I have a belief in what I see is right. But the master is saying we are only conveying you what is, not what should be, based on your belief. You believe in what your intellect says, that belief becomes the blind belief, and that blind belief also causes the delusion. So this belief is blind. One guy has the, so that is what is the greatest obstacle. I'm coming slowly, step by step to the intellect. Yeah, let us see another point in the intellect. So mind and the eyes act like a camera or the intellect. What is that camera does? When we look into the camera and the object outside, we focus on we focus on one angle. We find that this picture should be right and we left the rest. Similarly, the intellect focus on one point and it leaves the entire world. So that is why as long as we believe in the intellect, it becomes the blind belief. It will not help us to reach to the reality. So we have to object or we have to reason all our blind belief. Then what happens? The moment the intellect becomes blind, then raga and dvesha, attachment and detachment, and the delusion returns. I look at you, blind belief that your name is this, your gender is this, you belong to this country. Intellect instantly says, I know. Hold on the intellect. Please let me know who you are. Let me go little deeper. Let me not say, I know who you are. That is the that is what is happening to our mind and intellect. Are you getting it? So that idea, that notion, that way of living must change to see the reality. Now, see the other point in finding the real home. The sense organ holds the objects of the world. Whenever the sense organs, five sense organs, it picks up the objects of name in the form and the color through the eyes, the sound and the word through the ears, the taste and the smell from the tongue, and the smell from the nose, and touch from the skin, sensation from the touch. Mind always talks and expresses about what is already known, who you are. So I know through the mind your name is this, which is already known to my brain, my mind. Now pay attention. The intellect tries to know what is unknown. I'm giving you a brief and a simple explanation. There is a long, long understanding in lot of the text. So the mind always expresses what is seen before. And the intellect tries to understand not only what is seen before, but it also wants to understand what is not there before in the mind and the sense organs. But if the mind dictates the intellect, that is impurity. So I have to get rid of the impurity before the intellect tries to know what is unknown. Do you see that? So when that intellect, which is clear, I know this is in the field of the known, but intellect always, when it starts the journey to find out what is unknown, then we see that reality. Then we see that reality. So now see, let us go further. Intellect says, now realizes, I see the partial truth. Where is partial truth? I see, my real home is my physical home. Okay, at the next level, my mind lives in the body, but the fact is, body lives in the mind. But we always take for granted that mind lives in the body, the real self is in the body. So, what to do? This is what the mind knows, what the intellect should do to know what is unknown. What is the first step? Is Viveka. Again, repeating Viveka. Pure intellect comes from the Viveka. And pure Viveka comes from thinking about what the way we are living, to separate from the real and unreal. So I discussed about present blockages in the intellect are four: attachment to an object, wrong logic, uh, and I am not able to understand. uh, these simple principles means the intellect is not triggered. I don't trigger the intellect. I don't ask the intellect, hold on, why you are keeping this blind belief that you know everything? Go beyond what you know. That is the subject of the mind. And then false notion, wrong ideas. Wrong ideas. One thing more I should put here, that is a long story, but I should put one thing more here, that what should I put? Viveka, yes. Yes. So intellect should be triggered to know by Viveka what is still unknown to me. That triggering must happen. If that is not happening, intellect, which is nearest to the real self, will continue to block my progress. And then the real self cannot be known. So, the importance of the Viveka is written, explained by every master again and again, again and again, again and again. Let me repeat one thing and then come back to the same thing. I have discussed before that what teacher gives in the Eastern wisdom. It's a knowledge of the real self, how he received it from his master. And the second master received from his master and his master. And who is the ultimate master? The real self in you. You see, that must be the intellect must contemplate and reflect. Whatever any teacher is speaking, he is speaking about me. And who is that real me? Is the real self. And that is my real home. What prevents me not to maintain awareness of this fact? What is preventing me? Same past, present, and the future blockages. The object in the mind. Maybe I'm not aware of that object, it is still working in the mind. So, when it is working in the mind is impure. The mind dictates the intellect. Intellect says, I have understood. No, if I have understood, I'm already there. So, can I live into that awareness the moment you come before a teacher? Oh, that he is talking about me, my real self. Always, all the time. Because I do not know, so this teacher expresses my real self in front of the mind. That is why we have a tradition of respecting the Guru. Not because, not because you really respect the Guru, because you consider your intellect clearly perceives that he is my real self. So, as a seeker, you are selfish, but selfish for a right reason. Second reason is also there. So, how to get rid of the blockages? Because you bow down. It means the blockage, one blockage is ego in the present. So, that ego drops, ego creates a blockage. So, that is why we respect. So, it is not that we feel inflated, we become very big if someone respects us. We perceive, oh, because now you have some interest in knowing what is your real self. That is why you are paying respect to the teacher. So we take it as very casual and normal. Oh, you are insulting the teacher. Okay, you are insulting your real self, not me. Because that me and mine is not there. And when the me and mine is not there are a lot of things are coming, but I'm restricting to the topic because that is the way we can progress. So now you have understood this. So what happens? Our topic is false to the real home. So when we are clear about this false home, body, physical home, mind, calmness, intellect, wisdom, sense organ, perception without likes and dislikes, motor organs, action in the absence of ego, and the fruits of an action. You see, we have covered the 7 steps. just in four things. So, when the sense organs are living in itself, when the mind is living in its natural state, and when the body is living in its natural state, then the intellect is able to perceive what is real. What is the most important thing here? I think I discussed about it before. Satsang. Satsang is basically, I say it is a hidden practice. Why it is a hidden practice? Because normally, in the beginning, the seeker feels the teacher is talking and explaining about the principles, then I have to do the practice. Future blockages. Now, that is how I'm connecting the dots. After explaining, so, what is that satsang? Satsang, you listen to it and it removes your delusion here and now. Without removing the delusion, you cannot love your real self. Without loving real self within, you cannot leave the delusion. So, one aspect is that is why I talked about it, that a seeker ultimately starts feeling love, respect, adoration to the teacher. In fact, he starts perceiving the real self the way he types. Without moving the mind, the heart cannot leave the desires, likes and dislikes. It is the heart that contains the satisfaction element. And that satisfaction element, what I discussed last week, rati, trapti, tushti. Now I added satsang here. First I said satisfaction. So where the mind is sitting in rati, physical pleasure. Even having a smartphone is a physical pleasure. So not only the sexual pleasure. So then the trapti, food, satisfaction, and tushti, accumulating the possessions. I bought a new monitor and the new computer possession. Trapti, satisfaction. But you play. Now you remove that ego sense, the future blockages, current blockages. Then you buy damn anything. It does not belong to you. So you have removed the delusion. When you remove the delusion, you find your real home is the real self. Today we are talking of application from false to the real home. You see, so satsang plays an important role. When I say sometime that I was with my master for 26 years, oh, you might be crazy, you cannot understand. That's why it took you 26 years. Answer is no. That is not the case. Case is different. Until you are settled in the self, you have to continue to listen. You see that is the beauty. So without moving the mind, heart cannot leave these three types of satisfaction. So I'm going logically. So what I'm doing, what I told you, the work of an intellect. What is the work of the mind? The mind expresses what is already known. And the intellect has to work what is still unknown. I want to know. But the mind has to be pure. The sense organ should not be attached to and detached to one object. Otherwise, those objects will enter into the mind and the mind will push to the intellect. Then I will remain in the field of the known. And then the intellect cannot work. So that is why. So, what is the importance of satsang? This is the importance. So, every time you are listening, oh, you are contemplating, you are reflecting, oh, yes, yes. And one day, what happens? The learning comes from that intellect, the love comes from the within, and then the moha is removed, the delusion is removed. When the delusion is removed, then what happens? Then you come face to face with the real self. Now, in this satsanga, let me talk a little bit of satsanga, then I'll come back to the false and the real home. So, satsanga, what happens? Satsanga combines the path of love, it combines the path of action, it combines the steps of what is desired and what is not desired. So, when we say what is desired and what is not desired, it is understood as somewhat practices coming from the religion, the yama and the niyama. I should be very clear what is not desired in the journey, and I should keep myself away from what is not desired in the journey. What is not desired is ultimately one word: the delusion is not desired. So, what is that? Say, for example, that simple example. When my teeth hurts my tongue, I say it is okay. So both belongs to me. It is a sense of delusion. But when someone other hurts me, then I react. So that kind of a mind must change. That is another deeper delusion. So satsang removes that delusion again and again, listening, understanding. Then the love for yourself comes from the satsang also, and the knowledge also removes the ignorance. That is why 26 years, when I realized after a few years the satsang is greater than any practice. Why? It is easily available because I need not to go and sit for 1 hour to do the practice. I can live into that knowledge all the time. And it fills my mind and intellect and heart with love. With love. So that is why we lay very importance in the steady intellect to find our real self. What is that steady intellect? Steady intellect does not mean that I should increase my IQ, because increasing my IQ depends on the information given to me by from the mind. What is known? I have to work on what is known. I have to work with the physics principles in order to create another smartphone. But I'm not creating anything. I have to find the real home. The intellect must pursue what is yet to be known. What is yet to be known. What is steady intellect? That helps us to find the real home. That means the real home in the heart behind all the delusion. Check in your daily life that the mind remains calm in every circumstances and conditions. Sense organ perceives an object without any attachment and detachment. Motor organs performs the action in the absence of ego and the fruits of an action. Then what happens? Your intellect perceives the beauty not only in the world outside beyond delusion, but it starts looking inside. Can we give example? Yes, you put a rose in your right hand. So that rose does not say, I will not send my fragrance to the left hand because you are keeping it in your right hand. So I will give the smell to the right nostril only, not to the left, and even not to the others. Do you see you keep a rose in your hand? Oh, what a beautiful flower. What a beautiful smell. Oh, can I smell? And you say yes. Can my intellect live into that state? Check it. You are already there. Sun does not say, I will not give you light, my light and heat to you. I will only give light and heat to others. Same way with the earth, the air, the water, flower. They give everything equally to everyone. Krishna says that is the sense of equanimity in the mind. And that equanimity of the mind gives the free hand to the intellect to discover what is yet to be known. And that knowledge always comes from satsang. That knowledge always comes from satsang. So that is the importance of the satsang. So, what happens while listening and listening? You have been listening to me almost for about a year in this series. So, what happens to our personality? Two things comes: Shraddha, the faith, and the intellect now go together. Faith and people, huh? Shraddha also comes it. When the Shraddha comes, faith comes, it charges the intellect to continue to search the unknown. Otherwise, if Shraddha or the faith is not there, then we listen to one or two talks and we say goodbye. I have understood, and I continue to live in delusion. So that is why I say I heard my master for almost uh, 2 years, Shraddha and Bhakti. Now, let us go into a real understanding of the real home, which is already there. So, that will also help you find the solution. You love yourself, no doubt. We all love ourselves the most, even greater than everyone.
Yeah.
That is well settled. That real self is full of ananda, and that ananda expresses itself as love to myself. So it is not hidden, it is present here. Huh? With the logic, with the faith. So intellect is now searching the unknown. With faith, we love ourselves. So that love contains the ananda. It means the real self is full of ananda, and that ananda is expressing itself in the form of love to myself. Go slowly. So if I love myself, that love is present in my heart. So when I allow the love to manifest from the real self, not because I see something outside, because I am attached, because the mind does not say, I like you, then I love. It is totally different. You see, it is here and now. I love myself, which is 100% clear. So that love is an expression of Ananda. Ananda is what the real self is. So I allow the love to manifest from the real self. Allow the love to express my mind. Now pay attention. There are two elements. One, the now the mind is expressing the love, and the real self gives that love. Why? Because it is the nature of Ananda. When I say I love you, it means I must be present and love must be present. Similarly, when I say I love myself, the utmost, so we say that Ananda expresses the love for myself. So there are two things. In the mind, I love myself. And in the heart, there is a real self. Clear? Now, I express and I merge this love with you, with everyone. The love that is coming from the heart, I merge that love for others also. And the same real self, I merge huh, with others also. So the Buddha says it is compassion. We, Patanjali says it is real self. The other master says it is total non-violence. It means Ananda is my real nature. Love for love, real self for real self. How it is able to express itself when the mind removes the impurity, when the sense organ is not attached, there is no blockages left. So then I see where is my real home. The real home is within the real self. It is not the false self. We are talking of application false to the real self. So I contemplate, I reflect on it. I see my master. Very good. Name in the form. The mind already knows this. But I want to discover that love. I love myself. So I become aware of that love. And that love goes to the master. And the real self also goes to the real self. It is only one. This is one way we contemplate again and again in the purity and the clarity of the mind. Now, coming to the Chitta part, Sata Chitta Anand. So, we are returning from the back, the Ananda, now the Chit. The Chit must manifest Viveka to keep the delusion away. Simple. Chitta or the mind, the consciousness that manifests as the mind and the intellect must live in the state of viveka. We must think, speak, and act, work with the viveka. Working with the viveka, no ego sense, no desire for the fruit. See that? I'm merging all the 7 steps. Because if we do not keep those 7 steps in our head, then real home cannot be found. That is what the journey is. So, Viveka simply means now for me the self and the not self. So Viveka starts with the thoughts, contemplation, and reflection that gives me the knowledge. But without consciousness, I cannot have the knowledge. So there is a chit of the Satchidanand. Whether I say consciousness, sensation, feeling, when I say I know, I understand, it is all part of the consciousness. I know, I am speaking, I am listening, all a part of the consciousness. Can I live into that state of Viveka all the time? So, Ananda, real self, love, Chit, Viveka, and what about Sat? What about Sat? So, my master used to say that is your mind knowing and experiencing the state of fearlessness, free from the fear of death and the birth, freedom from the pain and the pleasure? You can touch the existence. The water, nothing happens to the water. Even if we say there is a flood, there is a storm, there are waves, there is an ocean, there is a pond. Water remains water. That is what is existence. Here and now, not in the future. Because if the mind thinks of the future, then I am listening to you. I will practice in the future. So I have divided the existence in time and the space. And if I have divided time and the space, then I have to keep an object in the mind. And that object in the mind is objectified, and that is creating a blockage to find my real self. You see, just we are merging all the previous 7 steps until 14 steps. This is all you can say the preparation. But during that preparation, you have already moved too far from the delusion. And after the 15th step, you simply, the teacher speaks the principle, you are already there. So then what happens? Then we experience what is love is also the wisdom or viveka, and what is viveka is also the existence. So Sat Chit Anand are not basically three, they are one, expressed through the mind as one. All masters, they explain you. I started with what? I started with one thing, that we have to focus on what is, not what should be. The teachers of Eastern wisdom explain what is. So to know what is, I need not to do anything, but I have to do lot of things to purify the mind, to remove those blockages that prevents me seeing the truth. Do you see that? Let us pick up more principles, something of application in order to why we are not searching our real nature. Go opposite. Because we live in delusion. Simple. So I have to get rid of that delusion. Then we give too much importance to others. Why we give too much importance to others? Only pick up the 3 points. Rati, Trapti, Tushti. I'm satisfied. I have lot of money. I have a big house. I eat what I think I have to eat. I can go for any kind of pleasure. So I stop thinking. Because animal satisfaction, animal happiness, animal pleasure. You see, that is why I'm not searching my real nature. I'm okay. Now, what we say in America, eat, drink, and be merry. Eat, drink. So, when it means my intellect is not developed as a human intellect, then I get carried away by these three types of satisfaction. So even my friend, even if you think and contemplate how many things I need to do today, examine your agenda, and you will find 99% of the works that we are going to do on a given day pertains to these three satisfactions.
Yeah.
So I have not to increase my IQ. I have to understand in a simple way. Oh, this is what the pleasure is taking my mind there. And now the intellect will prevent me to search what is unknown. Real self is unknown to me. And the job of the intellect is to find what is unknown. But the intellect says, no, I'm happy with these satisfaction and pleasures. Why? Because it is dictated by the mind. And when it is dictated by the mind, then sense organ and the motor organs, the siblings of the mind also supports. The body also supports. The world is, society is already supporting it. I know you love your honey so much. Come on. You love your honey because you love your real self. Can I see that? So, someone for wealth, people who do not care relations in the family, but too much care for the wealth, find out what happens. So, sometimes people care too much for the wealth, the third level of satisfaction, then they ignore second level of satisfaction and the first level of satisfaction. So, why? Because the mind becomes like a matter. Because I'm accumulating the possessions, what I'm accumulating matter, whether it's a money or a house or a possession. So the mind becomes like a matter. And that mind says pleasure is only there. We forget everything because mind is obsessed with three kinds of pleasure. We behave like an animal internally. Outside, society says you are intelligent. You see how much care you are taking care of these three pleasures. Aurobindo says there is a life of material existence, there is a life of mental existence with three kinds of pleasure, and then there is a life of real self. The most beautiful, never changing, all pervading. All pervading. So, dropping ignorance leads to awakening of knowledge of reality. We have already seen that when we say dropping ignorance, either you take up the present blockage, the past blockage that I keep in the mind, that expresses as an object, as a thought process, the future blockage that I keep in agenda, and the third one is the present blockage of attachment delusion. So once we get rid of it by constant contemplation and reflection, I started with Ananda, Chit, and Sat. So the moment you are reflecting, you find The heart is clear, and you can see that real self. Many people say it is an act, it is choiceless awareness. There is no choice, there is only one. In the mind, there cannot be a choiceless awareness. It means the intellect finds that choiceless state within. There is a simple process. During the day, become aware how many times the mind uses me and mine.
Yeah.
Just me and mine. You become simply aware. I have to use. If you ask me whose car is this, I will say it is mine, but internally you know this me and mine even does not do not belong to me. This world does not belong to me. It has no meaning. Me and mine, if they belong to me, if I am obsessed with it, I am carried away by the three pleasures. Again, the three groups of pleasures. And that leads me to delusion. Delusion does not only mean that I'm living in delusion, but I'm working in delusion, I'm thinking in delusion, I'm speaking in delusion. Oh, I have a crush on you. That crush is also a delusion. That crush is also a delusion. So, there is another way to see it. In the morning, check where the mind is running. It is running after an object, a person, or a thing. Very good. An event. But then also ask the mind, let me find out which kind of pleasure you are seeking. So you are breaking the delusion mentally. Does not mean that you have stopped working. You are still working the same way outside. But now you are clear. Now, because you are a seeker, how can you work huh, in delusion? How can you are so? What happens? One yoga teacher is she's wonderful, but she's always running. So she says, "Oh, let us finish this lesson in time." Sometime I take little more time. No, no, no. You should finish the lesson in time. I have lot of work to do. The future blockage. It will not help you to realize. Your mind should be totally free. I have told indirectly, but so what should I do? No, no, she notes down everything. She teaches to her students. Everything is possible. I was doing the same in the beginning. So dropping me and mine is working on the mind, also not only the sense organs, but also the physical body. Let us pick up again couple of more applications. So what happens? What happens the previous 7 steps? If we follow those previous 7 steps, what happens to the mind? Sometimes the mind says, I have to do nothing of, no work in the world. Let me sit. And you become aloof from the world. So that is known as the dark night of the soul. Now I'm talking about the results of all the 7 plus 8 steps. Eighth one. What is the dark night of the soul? You wake up in the morning because now you have understood the delusion is gone. You are not running after any of the three kinds of pleasure. So the mind feels a kind of loneliness. Past impressions are still attached. It wants to run after, but the viveka has come, the viveka prevents. The past impression is pulling you out. The impressions is pulling you out, and the viveka says there is no pleasure outside. So that creates a loneliness. So we have to change this. This loneliness is known as the dark night of the soul. I have yet to know the real self, and I have left the world.
Yeah.
So it is beautifully sad, dark night of the soul. Then what happens? We have to guard ourselves. It is only the satsanga that helps you continue the journey. That loneliness must be converted into being alone. Alone means all one. And I have explained you all one in Satchidananda. So we have to push the intellect. Okay, Ananda, I love myself. I don't need anyone. I am conscious of myself and existence. Oh, I am free from the fear of death and the birth. Fearlessness is there. So that brings the sense of being alone. That being alone in a positive way is understood as the third Purushartha. Purushartha means the third act of the life that we covered much earlier, couple of weeks, months ago. What is first a brahmacharya ashram, then a grahasthashram, and then we said vanaprasthashram. Vanaprastha means in the forest. You don't find people in the forest, means you are alone. So, what happens? You wake up in the morning because you are abiding in the real self, or the intellect says, abide in the real self, even you don't know. The mind experiences total calm and peace. What food I should get, whatever comes. So that's mind is not running after the pleasure. That is what the eighth step is, based on all the previous seven steps. Body knows how to become steady. Now see the practical aspect of it. Now you are doing a practice of meditation. So the body knows how to become steady and remain steady. The mind knows how to remain calm and enjoying freedom. The intellect knows how to remain in wisdom, how to live into the shreyas for the self every moment. So that is you have found your real self at least. So what happens in the eighth step? You think, speak, and act with the people, place, things, and object, but inside you experience a kind of a solitude, a kind of aloneness. And in that sense of being alone, you approach to the heart. Inside, you find you are already steady in wisdom, calmness in the mind. You do not feel tired now. That is another great change that comes. When we do all the eight steps, we find no fatigue and tired. You feel the fatigue, but that remains separate from you. Now, see, two things happen. You feel a sense of fatigue in the body, but at the same time, you see body is not me and mine, so you are totally different from it. Another important change is that takes place. You feel that as if the mind has stopped searching for any kind of a pleasure outside. It feels outside. You simply play, have fun, you perform your duty, while the mind continues to live within. Mind continues to live within. So when the mind continues to live within, then what happens? Then you are always with something inside. We have yet to reach to that state, but still we are there. Our lifestyle changes. Mind was that was waiting for something, someone, some event to secure satisfaction and the pleasure has gone. So the body finds its real home in the steadiness of the body. Because the mind is not running outside, so it does not trigger the sense organs and the motor organs to remain. It does not have the blockages in the present, past, and the future that I have just explained. So, where the mind has to go, the mind has to abide, to live with the real self, explored and understood by the intellect. What I will do, I will also combine these two, understanding and application, in our next session. So I hope